Welcome along to Krunching Gears, Season 1, Episode 12, Part 1 of 2, with co-driver Gordon Noble. Gordon tells us about his early career, how he got started in motorsport, quickly rising through the ranks, sitting with the likes of Robin Lyons, then in with Trevor Cathers as they competed and won on the BRC and the Tarmac Championship. And then moving on, then sitting with Mark Fisher in those Mark's early years in the Super 6 and the 106 Championships, and getting the chance to sit in the Peugeot Works team for 2 rounds of the World Championship. He then goes on and tells us about his time with Kris Meeke, and then in the Works team, Works Peugeot UK team, with Rory Galligan and Gary Jennings, before moving on to the world stage with Niall McShea and Alister McRae. This and so much more. I hope you enjoy.
Bertie Fisher and Andrew Nesbitt have made the 1999 event a classic, as we have already said. Never has so much been provided for so many by so few.
The proudest time in the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett.
Welcome along to Krunching Gears. In this episode, we speak to Gordon Noble. Gordon has been a co-driver now for, I'm sure he'll maybe could fill it in more in the years, but it's been a long time. Gordon, you're very welcome along.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It's good to be here. I'll tell you a few yarns that, as you say, I've been co-driving for a while. As far as I can remember, I did my first rally in 1984, which is 36 years back, so it's a while.
So what got you involved in motorsport in the first place? Was it in the family growing up, or?
Not particularly. My family were farmers from down in Fermanagh. I just had an interest in machinery and probably travel a bit as well. Always was intrigued with rally cars and going fast and the noise they made and that sort of stuff. And on the farm, I'll admit, I worked a lot there, but I never had a pile of interest in the animals. All I wanted to do was take out tractors and machinery and spend hours and hours of that. And I suppose we went to school, we read the papers, bought whenever I was able to afford it, I bought all the magazines and read about it and stuff like that. I tell you, one of my memories is working on the farm. We had a guy that worked for my dad on the farm, and he had a passing interest in kind of motorsport, and I convinced him to take me to actually watch some rallies. We watched the Permapost rally, as it was called, way back in the early 80s, whenever Ronnie McCartney and those guys were driving on it. They also talked him into taking me to watch the Circuit of Ireland. I'm not sure of the year, whatever year Billy Coleman was there in the Stratus.
Yeah, probably 77, 78, around that time.
Yeah, I didn't have any license, and he had one, so I talked him into getting up at the crack of dawn, as in 3 a.m. on Easter Tuesday morning it would have been, to go to San Finn and watch the circuit coming through there. So that was the earlier interest. And then there was a stock car track down in Castle Derg. I used to get him to take me there as well. And that kind of developed, and I was nosy and wanted to see what was happening and so on. So it really developed then from whenever I went to university, and there was a motor club in the Polytech. Joined that and found quite a number of like-minded folks, and found out a bit more about motorsport. I started marshalling as soon as I got a car, but didn't really start competing until 1984. Kenny Murray and I bought a little auto test car and started driving that. We spent a year at that doing the Northern Ireland auto test series. I then tried to drive a wee bit those early days as well. I had Talbot Sunbeam and done some navigation rallies in it.
Yeah.
Gavin Campbell was the guy who was my co-driver, who
Yes.
you might have heard of or know of. So he was also with the Polytech whenever I was there. But I say Kenny Murray then was my buddy and worked in the garage beside me and things like that. And we eventually moved on from that auto testing to doing some navigation rallies together. And that's where the foundation of that was. We're all very enthusiastic and fairly naive as well, I would say, but enjoyed it. And I have to say that the one catalyst that kind of made us do more was we went to our first navigation rally was in Cookstown, which was a Northern Ireland Championship status event, and probably was a bit above us for our first time out. But a few weeks later we went to Enniskillen Motor Club's snow spinner rally, which is a close to club event, and we ended up finishing second there. That second overall, and it was about 40 odd cars started, so that gave us a bit of confidence really to keep at it and keep on.
There's something here to build on.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So then the switch from night navs or the navigation rally to stage rally.
Again, Kenny Murray was him and I together. We ended up half financing on Avenger. If anybody listened to this, if they know what one of those was, we paid for it half each, and we started doing some stage events in that. The idea initially was that we would drive half and half, but we soon found out that he was kind of faster driving and I was better in the sort of passenger side. So that's where we spent most of the time. And I did a few rallies in that car. I did the Lakeland stages in it, and no idea, finished 5th or 6th in the class. I did a few quarry events and was quite competitive there. Whenever I knew where it was going, I used to be reasonably good in it. That wee car then, unfortunately, saw a sad end. Kenny was out testing it one night and wrapped it around a bloody tree. So it was then rebuilt into another Sunbeam shell. Him and I rallied that for, I suppose we started rallying that car in the Avenger in 85 and right through to 87, I suppose, when the Sunbeam was about. We wouldn't have done a lot of events, but we did, a lot of the Northern Ireland Championship type events and stuff like that. So that's what really was the stepping stone into sort of stage rallies. And then as you did more and more stage rallies, you met more and more people, and eventually a few other guys invited me to go and navigate for them on the back of being reasonably good at the navigation rallies, I suppose. So that's kind of where it started in the mid to late 80s and developed from there,
And you were also kind of working along with Brian Patterson and Lisno with distributing the bulletins and events, were you too, is that right?
Yeah,
later down the line.
No, that was in those early days as well. And I'm not really sure, to be quite honest, how that link was made between the Pattersons and us. But obviously, the Brian and Liz must have been doing some bulletins, and we got to know and know that there was a job going, for want of a better term. And this was the time that Rothmans were actually sponsoring the Circuit of Ireland, and the bulletins were in very much in sort of demand and so on. So Kenny Murray and I again teamed up with the Pattersons, and we had a briefing every morning and evening with the Pattersons. We would go to the service area and collect bundles of these bulletins. As far as I remember, there used to be 3 teams or 3 crews whose job was to go and distribute them. So then if we collect them in the service area, we were organised to go to the next stage along. Then between the three crews, we organised which sort of junction we were all going to. So we didn't all turn up with the same one. We're trying to spread the bulletins about. At that time, you must remember, there was no mobile phone, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no instant results, and everybody relied heavily upon the Pattersons for the story of what was happening, the results. Even competitors were kind of relying on them for to know where they were lying and the kind of results and stuff like that. So everybody is extremely hungry for that, for that bit of news. And for us, it was a bit of an adventure, We're heading off, and I was having to navigate up and down wee roads in Southern Ireland using half-inch maps to find the locations and stuff like that. There's no money in it, mind you. If anybody is working for Brian a lot, you weren't going to make profit, but it wasn't going to cost you anything. But,
more for the enjoyment of it as much as anything else.
But fantastic link to that family who've done so much rallying over the years. I must say, certainly Brian will be very badly missed in doing that, but bulletin service. I know the family had probably carried on where it's now where it's profitable to do it. Is that the way to put it?
Yes.
Brian was a fantastic guy in the family as well, doing that bulletin service over the years.
And Brian had such a way with him, with people too, hadn't he, for the competitors and all. That he had the same time for number 1 as number 101 kind of thing.
I was exactly going to say that, Kevin. He talked to everybody in the same sort of language. He knew everybody, or he seemed to know everybody. Anyway, is that the way to put it? And was able to take everybody's stories on board and calculate times quicker than sort of computers could do it. So and Liz was typing away like sort of furiously somewhere in the sort of background of the story as well. And most, you take back to the initial Ballyrain Bugles, where some of the stories might have been the truth was kind of massaged a bit at times. But certainly, whenever Brian was doing the more serious events like the British Championship or the RAC rally for a number of years, it was a very very serious job. So
it was dependent. That was dependent on getting them results out around the country. It wasn't, so it was very important.
That's how the news sort of got out. Really was, It really was.
So by looking there, 88, Robin Lyons from Castledurg, then you were sitting with Robin. Robin would have been a very handy driver too, and always very good machinery. Very
good driver, very well balanced driver, and very good at his technical knowledge as well. Owned a garage and obviously built some of these cars, but the cars we rallied were nearly all ex-works cars or built in the sort of Peugeot factory and stuff like that. Interesting times. I met Robin through being around Castledurg, I suppose, more than anything else. And I know that the first time that he invited me to go and do the Ulster rally, I think it was, some of his service crew questioned who this boy was he was taking with him, because they knew about me doing some navigation rallies, but weren't really sure about anything else. But thankfully, after we'd done a stage or two, everything settled down, and their confidence grew in me, and we worked very well, and had some very very good times, Robin.
Yeah, he's done great results along the way too. And as you say,
the results were good. The results were good. The speed was good. Unfortunately, at that time, a Peugeot 309 wasn't the greatest handling car of all things. We had a few scares and a few calamities in it, but again, the back end of it would have went anywhere. You would never have predicted where it was going to go. But Robin was a very, very good driver. His sort of gravel driving as well was very good. We were in Talbot Sambas and 205s, 309s, all that sort of stuff. Robin had stopped rallying Sunbeams at the time I had joined him, but it was good. It was fantastic times, and outside the car was good as well. I must say we built up a very good rapport personally, and enjoyed ourselves and had a few beers after the rally and stuff.
Had a lot of fun too.
Plenty of fun. Definitely was good. Definitely was good.
And then another local man to yourself then too was Trevor Cathers. That was 91. You started sitting with Trevor and BRC in the Civic. Trevor was another guy that was a very handy driver behind the wheel of a car too. TC is a fantastic driver. Anybody who's ever watched him over the years, especially his tarmac driving, very, very good driver, very precise, on the edge a lot, and the stage times are always good, But my link from him came back, if you go back to the basics of the sort of navigation rally stuff, Trevor decided to do he'd taken a sabbatical for quite a number of years, come back rally and bought a Toyota Corolla, did some rallies around Ireland and stuff like that, and then bought an ex-Robbie Head Honda Civic to go and do some British Championship rallies. At that time, there was no pace notes on those BRC events, but there were 25,000 scale maps available for Scotland, Wales, and Yorkshire and everywhere else. And I had gained a bit of a reputation in some ways, whether it's true or not, that I could read those 25,000 scale maps. So he was going off to do the Welsh Rally, and Anthony Donnelly, who was a common link between us, made the sort of contact, and away we went. I got my maps marked up. We went off to Wales. I had done a few rallies over in Wales before using 25,000 scale maps with a few different guys. Peter McCullough and I did a few, and I can't remember who else. Mervyn Hill, maybe, another guy from Ballymena. But anyway, when we went to the Welsh, and remind me what year it was, 1991, is that correct? 91, yeah.
That's little Honda. And I
92,
think
91, yeah, the Civic, yeah, it was 91 in the Civic.
Trevor had, obviously been rallying as Avenger for the years before that and driving blind and things like that. And I think he was a bit surprised at how much information I was able to get out of the out of the map and how sort of useful it became to him. And that started our relationship or our career together. Unfortunately, that first rally didn't actually work out too well. We rolled stage 16, I think it was, in Resolve in a very muddy corner. I caught the front wheel and the car started to spin and tripped over and rolled. And at that time, there was no Super Rally or Rally 2 or whatever.
That was that Rally over.
So then TC then moved on from that Honda Civic, and he had a Sierra Cosworth, a two-wheel drive Sierra Cosworth for a while, and then we had a four-wheel drive Sierra Cosworth, and then moved on to an Escort Cosworth. And those were in the early 90s, were very competitive, especially in Ireland.
They probably were the Group N car to have then at that stage, weren't they?
They were, yeah. They were indeed. That two-wheel drive Sierra Cosworth, I don't know, we didn't have a speedo, but somebody was able to calculate in Galway we're doing 145 mile an hour in it. So that's pretty scary sort of yoke. It had loads of horsepower. Didn't particularly brake too well, but it went forward fast. And
the gearbox really on them was a bit like butter on them too, wasn't it? Yeah,
they were extremely buttery gearbox. The two-wheel drive car wasn't too bad. The four-wheel drive car was just the gearbox wasn't built. It was a standard box for a road car. By the time you put up that turbo power in it, we went to Killarney in the four-wheel drive Group N car, and we broke the gearbox halfway up the gap. Like, that's as far as we got. But we managed to survive that rally. And if you want to hear a few yarns, maybe I'll start telling you a few yarns. But don't know. You can tell me the year, but we were in a Group N four-wheel drive Sierra. Broke the gearbox halfway up the gap. We're left with third gear and fifth gear to finish the stage. Drove down into Kenmare, and we had a service crew, but they didn't have a gearbox. So they filled us with fuel and sent us on, and Ballaghabeema was the next stage. It's quite twisty and narrow up through the mountain.
Yes.
And we were really struggling in this car with third gear and fifth, and that was it. And up through the really narrow part of the mountain, of course, somebody caught us. We had to try and pull in, let them pass. Couldn't get going again. Took ages. I was out pushing. We got out over the hill. Got to service. And the service was on the roads between Ballaghabeema and then the start of Carr Lake down past the wee school, if you know, it was a triangle roads about a mile long. Arrived in there, and the usual fashion was the gearbox had to be repaired, and the guy said, this is going to take 45 minutes. I said, guys, you have 20 here. This is not going to work. So this was a kind of almost a kind of safari spec car. I think the bolts in it was all really, really long, and the exhaust had to come off, and a whole lot of bits had to be done. So the service, as I say, was very a mile long. I cajoled a lift from two Australian tourists who were completely lost and stuck in this middle of this traffic chaos to give me a lift to the service out control was also the stage arrival control for Carr Lake, just on a head down. So I got these two American tourists to take me down and pointed them in the general direction of Killorglin to get them out of the middle of the chaos. Walked down, and of course by this time the first few cars are starting to queue up and get their times. So I went along to this arrival control car and stuck my card in and shouted it was car number, I think we're number 10 or something like that. Stuck my card in and blah blah blah. And this whole bit of confab, and a few people came late. There was enough chaos that this timekeeper gave me whatever time I wanted. So I walked back up the road and stood. I thought, this is not going to happen.
There's no mobile phone or nothing at that stage?
No, there's no mobile phone. I had no idea where this gearbox is being repaired, where we're out of the rally, what we're doing. All I knew was I had clocked in. There's no penalties to be at this particular time. And I was standing there, and eventually went and got tea off Hugh Steele, who'd be an uncle of Colin McRae, was overdoing the rally, and he was sitting, and I went over to his van. He was at the very end of the service, and I got getting tea out of that. Whenever TC come roaring down through the service as fast as he could go. And we started Carr Lake behind Jenny Burrell in a Peugeot 205 Group N car, number 97, I think it was. So you can imagine the chaos there was going through Carr Lake then. And then we did a version of Churchtown stroke Rockfield back into Killarney. And of course, everybody in the front, in the first 20 cars in the rally, I assume we were out, that was us gone.
Yes.
Until we came to the service area in the Liebherr factory. And all the first crews were leaving. If we were actually coming in, everybody assumed we had that many penalties. Right. But actually, we finished the rally with 0 penalty.
Right.
Because we clocked into car late correctly, and everything worked. I think we finished second in Group N behind Bob Fowden or something like that. But
yes.
a big get away with it. Is that the way to put it? And then we spent the rest of that first day catching up and passing cars in the arrival control and passing cars at the stages and stuff.
Yes.
Bit of a let off, I must say. But back to your story. Well, TC was a fantastic driver, you know, especially on tarmac. He went and did the recce. He made notes, and then he just listened to them and
proved to what you told him.
Yeah, and you know, and we had a bit of a gap, him and I, for 93, 94, but then 95 I came back, and we had those couple of fantastic years, 95 and 96, where we won the British Group N Championship and the Irish Tarmac Group N Championship. A couple of very busy years in terms of the events we did, but success was good as well, you know. From excellent.
And you went on then, like, I'm just looking here, sorry, just to go back then to 93 with Trevor too. You went and done the Rally El Corte Inglés.
That's El Corte Inglés. Is that the last round of that European Championship?
That's the one that
happened there a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, exactly, that rally. So this was a bit of a the guy who was running Trevor's car was called John Eades, a Cypriot who was living outside Liverpool, and he had a lot of sort of deals to go and do some of these European Championship rallies. And at that time, TC was a reigning Irish Group N champion. So there was start money, and we got a free hotel, and we got our free ferry travel in and out, and that rally actually clashed with the circuit that year. We counted up at the end of it. The circuit would have actually cost us more money to do than going there. Whenever they got we hit your free hotel and free travel and a few things like that. So we got a bit of start money. We got a free recce car. That sort of stuff. So it was good to go and do some of those other events. We did that one in Gran Canaria. We did one in Hungary as well. Another very interesting, different event. Very slippery tarmac, but very excitable spectators, I must tell you, and stuff like that. So those overseas trips were all kind of good with Trevor. You know, a good experience and stuff. So
so you said then you come back then and you've done the double then, the British Championship and the Tarmac Championship.
Yeah, that's right. So
huge commitment from both of you for that, and the whole team as well. So.
That's a big commitment. We had a very good team, you know. The first year, the 95 year, with John McLean, who went on to work for ProDrive and was Peter Silber's #1 mechanic and so on. He was running the car first, you know, and it was a very kind of a friendly family wee team. Wooly John Dolan was running another sister car at exactly the same spec and the same age as our car, and John was looking after those as well. And then the second year, the 96 year, we moved to a company called McGabry Motorsport. Was Roy Hall and bloody hell, I can't remember that. I can picture the other guys, but I can't remember his name. But again, a small family run, you know, with those two guys looking after the car. TC was doing the driving, I was doing the navigating and the kind of the coordinating and stuff like that as well. So that was good. We did quite a lot of rallies, but the speed was good, you know. And,
I think you were kind of developing that car for ProDrive too at that time.
There was a bit of that, yeah. There
was on the stages, not that stage.
Yeah, there was a bit of that development work as well, where ProDrive were interested in us because we were fairly successful, and it was selling the car. There was other people interested in buying a car similar to that. It was much more reliable than those Escort Cosworths had been at the time, you know. And they like to see the car out there winning. It was their showroom, really, I suppose, for selling more and more cars. So that's good to be able to develop it as well, you know. So that was good, very good fun.
And in '97, then Tony Cairns, a local man to yourself too. Yeah, another very successful year with him as well. So.
There's a bit of a link there between that. There was Tony Cairns bought TC's car, so and then TC was kind of quitting or slowing down or not doing as much. So it seemed easy for me to transfer across, if you know what I mean. That's the way to put it. So when he bought the car, Robbie McGurk then started to look after it, and that team then we built, and we did the Irish Tarmac Championship, won Group N in the Tarmac series, which is good, you know. Couple of very good results. We had a good strong result in Galway, which is a good start, you know. our circuit result was reasonably good as well. So we had built up a really good start. So made it easier as the year kind of went on. We didn't go to the Manx. We didn't need to go to the Manx. So
yeah, the championship more or less tidied up.
Championship wrapped up at that time. So. But that was Tony. If you remember, had a history of driving some very good cars in sort of national events before that.
But never metros and all that, you know that.
But never really tried to do this to the tarmac series before. So good, and that kind of was he kind of. Well, his business changed. Is that the way to put it? Just after that, 98 and that sort of stuff, and later on, his business changed and that sort of stuff, and he'd had less time for rallying, that less spare cash, maybe.
Yes, actually, another very talented driver too, wasn't he?
Oh, good lad, yeah, very good driver. Wouldn't really boast about it much, but you know, a very, very good lad, like, you know.
I just wanted to be one of these boys that wanted to turn up and drive and didn't.
I want to turn up and drive, and didn't want to be in the kind of limelight a lot, but no, nice fella. I still talk to him regularly, so it's good to hear that. So.
Good stuff. Yeah. And also in '97, you sat with this other guy. What was he called again? Rory
Kennedy.
Whatever become of him?
You think about it in kind of hindsight now, Kevin. Who would ever let us two boys out together? Is the question, if you know what I mean. And both of us think we're going to be some sort of Sebastian Loeb immediately, but now the two of us have the ability to do it. So we can certainly tell you how to do it, but doing it is another thing. I think from memory, I think the first harvest I did with Rory was in a Group A Sierra. Is that correct? Is it?
I think so.
No idea what the deal was. It was the car that Paul Harris eventually owned. He didn't own it at that time. But that was a Group A Sierra Cosworth in the full 350 horsepower, two-wheel drive monster. Is that what you would call it? For to let us two boys out in it, and all it wanted to do was go forward fast. It didn't want to slow down. Didn't want to turn. It didn't want to do anything else. And we had a bit of a disaster. Both of us turned up. The start was we had based in Bunbeg, from what I can remember, and the first stage wasn't that far down the main road, but we left the start line and we talked about what you do with this car, with all these buttons and everything else. So some launch control system on it. So I said, Rory, how does this work? What are we going to do about this? So he says, hold on a minute. So we pulled up the side of the road, about a mile from the start and a mile to the start of the stage. So you push this button down, do this, you push the clutch in, you rev it up, drop the clutch, and away it goes. So we'll push the button in, revved it up, drop the clutch, bang. The freaking prop shot fell off in the middle of the road before we even got to the stage. So usual calamity, chaos, or whatever else. I got out and then found some very nice spectator who gave me a lift from where we had broken down back to the start. Service crew were still getting themselves geared up to move from the start to the actual service race. So got them rattled up down the road they came, got this thing jacked up, and they managed to repair it. But in the meantime, whenever they were repairing it, of course, I had then found my way to the stage start. To get clocked in there with no car, no crew, no nothing. But Rory eventually got there.
Hoping
a prayer. We managed to get away with that one. Well, we don't think we got any penalty, but they probably should have been, you know. But that was the start of a day. It was, you think back about it, it was bucket and rain all day long. For us in a two-wheel drive car, and it wanted to spin the wheels. And the other thing you must remember with that car, the turbo lag was, when I said it's half an hour, it was horrendous in hindsight. You could put the sort of throttle down and you could wait till you count 1, 2, and then it was a bang. There was no progressive power. It was a big switch, and it was such a big long delay that you had to look at the corner, turn in, and kind of throttle very early to get it to work. And we survived, you know.
Yeah, I think you finished like 10th overall or something, didn't you?
So I don't know. And that was the first of I'm not sure how many times Rory and I have done the harvest together. We've had a few outings. With a 306 Peugeot one day down in Killybegs that kept stopping on us, but we survived the rally. Then a couple of years, maybe in the mid 2000s, Rory hired Robbie McGurk's little Mitsubishi Evo 4 or 5. With a couple of very, very good runs in that. We're in the field one year. Oh man, I don't really think about that. But it was stage not that far from Fintown,
Right, yes.
out over the mountain. You know, you come off the back of Cark Mountain down there. There's one of those wee narrow roads dropped you down to the back of Fintown onto the main
Right.
Fintown,
Yes.
Ballabafay Road. But there was a crest and a short distance and a square left corner. And on the recce, we'd looked at it, wrote it down, and on the recce says, "Oh, somebody be off there." That was the kind of the comment we had, and drove on down the stage and made the notes and recce, and that was grand. Of course, first time over, two boys, crest 40 or 60 and square left, and Rory just kept going, and I thought it was all right. And then by the time we got over the crest, realised that we're never going to get round the corner. Straight through the hedge, down the field, and a really muddy, wet field. If you'd stopped, you're just going to bog, and I'd be there for the day. So you had to keep me moving. You got the bit of momentum.
Oh yes.
Kept rolling. At the bottom of the hill, there was this post and wire gap, sort of back onto the road or onto the stage. But as I say, if you had stopped, you'd bog. You never get out of there.
Yeah.
But Rory just kept the thing trundling along, going along. And the guy that owned the field was actually spectating and realised what we were trying to do. So he ran down to try and open this bit of wire, which was tied with a big bit of string, like.
Right.
And just as he got it open, we landed, and your man hadn't quite let go of the wire, and we got there, and he ended up falling at the bloody drain. We drove out through the gate and away into the field. So, hi. But hey, what I tell you, we still had a fairly good run. We definitely got a prize that day. But what it was for, I don't know.
You got a bit of crystal. That's all you were.
We got a bit of crystal. Must have finished. You take a Group N car in the mid 2000s. We must have been somewhere, and I had a good reasonable pace. But
and you never considered swapping roles, let him co-drive and you drive.
That opportunity never has really come up. I suppose that we thought about it and talked about it, and I know I think I told you at the start, I had this notion about driving over Kenny, and I had that Avenger and Sunbeam, and I drove a few navigation rallies, but that hasn't happened yet. We'll never say never to that, but again, us two boys together, two co-drivers in the one car. Literally anything could happen. Probably will, but I think that's back to where we started. This is what it's about. Both of us are quite competitive, as you might have guessed. Both of us like winning and making an effort, but at the same time, we both really appreciate the crack you have. That's
fun side of the two still there as well, isn't there?
You have to balance the two as well. So you can be assured there'll be a bit of crack. But when the helmet's on, nobody wants to be last.
No, that's it. The second still ticking into So
and you're always looking for a wee angle somewhere. You're always looking for some advantage too.
Yeah. And you're talking about a man then that was always looking for like an angle or an advantage. Then Mark, come on.
Yeah, that was. I suppose the links in that I suppose was back to through having got to know Rory, I ended up doing gravel notes for that Fisher team, and Robin Lyons was the other link as well. He was part of him friendly with Bertie and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
I'd done gravel notes for Bertie for a few years, and then obviously Mark was driving, and that's how we got to know each other. And he had headed off to do that McRae challenge in the UK and tried various co-drivers and had bits of success here and there. And in '98, then whenever he got chosen for the Seat Super 6, which was 6 drivers and six cars doing six rallies, came along to me, and we joined up. Away we went. Very good driver and exceptionally nice person, and had all the ability and was determined and had the ability. And one of the few people in life who have ambitions, but obviously was going to be able to actually get there as well, going to achieve them all. As you say, he was always looking for an angle, always looking for a wee bit, some sort of advantage that you can get without breaking rules, I can assure you. But any advantage you could get, he was very much taught me things about looking after my fitness, looking after how you eat, trying to sleep properly, doing an extra pass to the recce if it was available.
And you told before about the way you want the car.
I'm just going to tell you that story. You might be aware of it, Kevin, but not everybody would be. But this process started. We were going to do a rally in the Millbrook Proving Grounds, which is Vauxhall's, test track stroke proving grounds. Got big bank corners and bumpy bits and a whole lot of stuff. But it was a single venue rally. This is then moving on to the Peugeot Championship the year after, rather than Mark came up with this theory. A few of these boys had been there before. Had been in a single venue rally a couple of years back, and they would know their way about. And the in-car camera thing was a very, very new thought or process. But he reckoned if we could put a camera in the back of this car and we could do the stage the first time just using the maps as per what we normally would do, and then we'll go back to the van, watch it again, we could work out which corners are wider and narrower and where the bumps were
where
maybe
you
a wee
could
bit
get an
advanced.
advantage at, or was cut or something available.
So we kind of just discussed this and thought, Jesus, I don't know how you're going to get that to happen, because the technology certainly wasn't there tonight. So we headed off to this Millbrook rally with, at that time, your video cassette recorder you had on the TV at home was a thing that was literally 2 foot wide, 7 inches deep, and probably a foot and a half back, and it was powered by electric. There was no 12-volt ones or that sort of stuff.
No.
And they were fragile enough sort of things that the
temperamental,
but between him and Jerry McGardy, they made up brackets in the frame and a power converter kit to put this into the back of our rally car. And the camera was it was a thing about the size of a kind of loaf that was put onto the cage. And my job at the start of the stage was turn this thing on. I had to get the seatbelts, switch it on before you put the seatbelts on, done the stage, and come back. And again, done a lot of research and bought a little portable TV and another converter for the van. We came back out of the stage, just took the tape out, full size tape. Now this is another thing that's big, a bit of kit, and watched them back. And we didn't win that day, but we certainly gained a lot by having that knowledge. And then we worked out that this was a useful thing to have, and we could maybe develop this a bit further. And between Jerry and Mark, they came across Charlie McGuckin, who owned a company called Microcam, who was the business was developing, putting in security cameras into premises, pubs, nightclubs, shops, whatever else. And the cameras were getting smaller and smaller, and the technology was growing and growing. So they came up with a whole lot of theories. When Mark was making brackets, and Charlie was having these cameras, and the recording systems were getting better and better. And then that really developed that we were doing that. Then Charlie started to sponsor a few cars, and the whole thing developed. And that kind of was the basis where in-car camera technology really has taken off. So today you watch WRC live, you can watch whatever car you want, you hear everything you want. But that was kind of where it started back in 1999. That was,
Isn't that amazing? Just that something has developed from such a small idea to this now.
Well, that was Mark all the time. He was always looking for something else, something a wee bit different, wee angling things,
and even all our competitors saying that would about put out like a wee doubt in their head, what's he doing that for, or whatever,
He's into that as well. Any kind of a psychological gain you could get on the guys as well. I remember going to that Seat challenge as well, and the second rally we turned up when we got our car, we're taking off the wing mirrors, taking off the interior mirror, taking the heater out of it and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't that we gained 4 or 5 kilometers, 4 or 5 kilos, not 4 or 5 kilos. It was as much that we gained a wee bit, and you're going to be a bit faster, but how much you then demoralized by others, but other people on that championship, them realizing that he had found some way of doing it, and he was going to get better, and that sort of stuff. So any kind of an angle he could get, but fantastic guy, and worked so hard at all those things. But January 2001 was one of the most unfortunate days in my life, in terms of that accident, and Bertie, Emma, and Mark all gone, and tremendous change in my life and a lot of other people's lives. At that time, him and I were best buddies. Like we phoned each other every day. There was not any particular subject, no need to talk. Just for a chat and catch up and spread a wee bit of gossip or try and
scandalise
somebody. Yeah, I still think about them fondly, and I'm sure Rory would say the same. But
absolutely.
It's very important to remember that the ethos of the whole of that family really still lives on. I mean, they work hard, play hard to do things by the sort of book and things like that. So, I'm still proud to be associated with them.
Because the level of professionalism both Bertie and Mark was bringing to the sport was like unparalleled at the time, and has developed. That vein still runs through Irish rallying now to this day, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, for sure. For sure, you have to be the best at everything, not just the driving,
No. And Mark was developing obviously too with the C8s then into the 106s, and then for one in the 106 championship, he got a chance of 2 WRC rounds in the 206.
That's right.
That must have been fantastic for him too.
If you go back to that 106 championship, at that time, that was the biggest one-make series there was in Europe, I would say. There was lots of people came from all over Europe, some very good drivers from Britain and the UK, and you couldn't win it by having the most money. The cars were all the same. You were limited to how many tires you had. Normally, you were only allowed 6 tires per rally, which was within the budget of most folks. So it was all down to your preparation and driving and making that work. And we worked very, very hard at a lot of that background stuff as well, and that's shown through. Then we were the inaugural winners of that, and all the guys were there. Rory Galligan was there the first year. McShea came the first year. Marcus Dodd came. All those guys came to make an attempt to win. So it was good that it was shown through. And you say that the prize then was something that you couldn't buy.
No man could go out and buy that. No
man could buy a 206 world car. Peugeot don't actually sell them anyway, so there's no way you're going to buy them. And we were, I think, the 5th crew in the whole world to rally a 206 world car whenever we got to Greece. I think the history would show that we had mechanical disasters in both Greece and then GB as well. It was the most unfortunate forms of circumstance that all added up together. We had a very comprehensive test before Greece. We had 4 and a bit days in France, and rough and hot conditions, and everything worked. And the whole of the team were very impressed with Mark and his preparation, how he worked and his speed. They were equally impressed with the small things that make a difference. We went to the rally and there was a shakedown day, and we went to drive the car, and Mark came back and went to the engineers immediately afterwards and says, "There's something wrong with that car." He says, "The engine's not pulling right. There's something not wrong." They were kind of young fella from Ireland. What does he know?
Yes.
And kind of puffed about it. But they went and did a bit of homework and found out there was a problem with the engine.
Right. And
not something that you would notice easily. Is that the way it sounded all right? And I didn't see any difference. But he was able to detect that. I think the team were then impressed with his level of knowledge, that he was able to pick that up quickly and give them that feedback and so on. Yeah. Unfortunately, in Greece, then we suffered a series of disasters. We had a drive shaft failure, which led to a fire in the back of the car, which nearly burned out the whole car. We had to borrow extinguishers from the car coming behind us to get the fire out. We got the fire out, tried to struggle to the end of the stage. With this thing, the smell of the fumes inside the car was horrendous. We were choking and coughing and tears running out of our eyes.
Yes.
The fumes. The clutch eventually gave up, so that was the end of that. And back in those days, no Super Rally, nothing else.
Yeah.
Then we went to Rally GB, and again, very comprehensive test we did. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 days in filled prices and sweet lamb, and a lot of good work, and tested a lot of different components, very methodical test and all that sort of stuff. But for some unknown reason, I don't want to be critical of teams, but they took the car away back to France to give it a rebuild before the rally came back. And Mark had organised a bit of a shakedown at Phil Price Rally School between the recce and the rally on the Thursday. It would have been, I suppose. We didn't drive the car again. He couldn't get it to work. It was steering didn't work, diff didn't work. Center drift was a disaster.
Just didn't compared to the car you had finished the test.
Compared to finish the test, and this was nothing like it. And unfortunately, he put it on its roof on the night before the rally, in the middle of Phil Price Rally School, while Bertie and I were at this black tie dinner. There was an international rally drivers ball going on, which we were invited to go to, and Mark sort of made some story why he couldn't go, but he was away testing. But we knew he was away testing. What we didn't realise whenever we were there was that he rolled it. There was a whole panic then to try and find a workshop in the middle of Wales and at midnight the night before the rally to try and get this thing squared up and whatever else. And when I say we made the start in a bit of a panic, if I can explain, our start time in the middle of Cardiff, it was whatever time it was. It was at dark on Thursday evening, I suppose the ceremony start would have been. We were cutting that fine that I had to get him navigated up and down streets which were closed for the rally, down footpaths, move barriers out of the way. We didn't have time to follow the correct route around. Then on the rally, we another series of issues. Steering issue on stage 2, I think it was. It manifested itself Try to fix that, get back to service, put a new steering rack in, which they didn't actually tighten properly, so the steering didn't work too well. The next service to get that fixed, and a bit of cajoling not to have too many penalties going out of service. Then the centre diff wasn't properly pressurized, and it just went from bad to worse. And then the first stage on the second day, we thought everything was sorted, and away we went again. We're in, is it Rehola? We call that stage. We're down a big long forest, fantastic forest, Rehola, and we'd only done 4 or 5 mile of a 17, 18 mile stage, and the temperature shot up. But what we didn't know was that when they had put in the steering rack and changed some of the bits at the front, there was a heater pipe hose which was turned out, and when you turn full lock on the car, the wheel was actually rubbing the side of this hose, rubbed through the hose, pumped out the water, so we had no water in the engine for 10 miles, I suppose.
Right. Yes.
Got to the end of the stage, got out and found somebody's garden and put buckets of water into it and drove it for a while, and put more water, drove it for a while, got the service, and it seized and ran over. And, unfortunately, but that was the negatives from that year. Was the WRC, but the positive was we did the Irish tarmac damage at one group N and that again. Used Kieran McAnallen's Evo on very successful runs, and we also had a ProDrive Group N Subaru for a couple of rallies. Some very, very strong runs in that, particularly Killarney was very good. Finished 6th or 7th down there when we should have been. In theory, there was quite a lot of WRC Group A cars behind us.
Without a doubt. And also, like, you done a couple of the National British Championship and the Group A car as well, Group A Subaru. Like, that was always the left-hand drive and get you into the forest.
Yeah, there was
GB, wasn't it?
Good method behind that again. This is the Fisher thought process. Was that those 2 rounds of the British National Championship were using forests, the similar forest to Rally GB down in southern Wales. There was one called the Mutiny or Carriage. It's the same rally with a different title. And the second one was Bulldog at the end of the year. So both those rallies, they hired McKinstry's Group A left-hand drive car, and Mark and I went over to do those. Could have, should have won both of them, but for various reasons didn't. One of them was just a bit of an error. We got a bad seating on the first rally, and caught a guy in the metro on a stage, and he wasn't aware we were behind him. And Mark was really keen to dump the boy or get him out of the way, and I had to
pull him back
a wee bit and say, look, we're here to do miles, we're here to get to the end of the rally. Go and dump that boy. You're going to get stones up into the frigging radiator or break the screen or put us out of the rally trying to get past him. The guy was making the best effort he could. It just
he wasn't aware you were behind him yet.
Speed was a long way short of ours. That's the way to put it. So, but hey, it was good. Some very good stage times in there,
The talent was definitely there, wasn't it? There's no
people learning now. Yeah, and I mean, stepped into that car with the testing was zero. There was no test done before the rally. You just turn up and go. So good times and fantastic.
And then, as you say, on the 2001, just the bottom fell out of your world, I suppose, really at that time, didn't it? With that
in a number of regards. I mean, my rally career, I thought, was kind of over at that time. Is that the way to put it? I thought this was doomed again. And from a personal point of view, I was going to severely miss Mark and the Fisher family and all that sort of stuff. And that, the motorsport come back again, and the personal life come back, but it was gloomy enough for a month or two,
because it was foot and mouth and all in Ireland and all that time too. There was no rally.
There were a whole lot of things. Maybe it was good that because the circuit of Ireland was supposed to be based around Fermanagh, and the fact that it didn't happen kind of eased the pain, or maybe eased it a bit, or didn't cause
give it enough time to deal with it. Such shit.
But I suppose you're going to tell me about another young
upstart. This young fella too, Kris Meeke. Then
Kris Meeke.
You headed off to France with him, was it?
The first rally I did with him was in France. Again, Jerry McGarty was looking after the car for him. Fantastic mentor for any young driver, but don't think that Kris needed a pile of mentoring. Like, he needed the handbrake pulled the odd day, but not anything else, But superb driver. Him and I headed off to France. I was supposed to be the wise one. He was the fast one, but it's just the way it had. The recce was grand, but all he wanted to do was go 120 mile an hour everywhere, like even on the slow corners. And every corner was 105%, not 99%. Like, and one of the things I keep thinking back to, and Jerry keeps reminding me about it every week, came off the first stage in that Charlemagne rally, which is on the night before the main rally. That it was 2 stages at night,
Okay.
main rally, and they go off the first stage. And I said, young fella, your talent's amazing, but the wee car never last. And he just kind of holding away. We went like,
the same next stage.
Same stage. The next thing we were flat again and sliding up the grass, But we were going that fast. We were carrying that much speed in some corners, then we'd lose it somewhere, then we'd get it all back again.
Right.
Unfortunately, that rally we caught a chicane with a steering turn, which broke a steering arm,
Right.
and that put us out of the event. But then we had a couple of good. I mean, the speed was always phenomenal. The driving skill, you can't explain how easy it makes it look to go fast, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It just happens so naturally. And every time we had a collision or a problem, it was always on a slow corner. It was a chicane, or it was a hairpin, or something like that, where we were having the problems. When it was fast, it was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
With that. There was a single venue rally down in South Wales, and we're on a military place or wherever else. We rolled on a square corner, if you know what I mean, but the other fast bits were so much faster than everybody else. But with a couple of very good, we won the Swansea Bay Rally, which is again those fast forwards for us in South Wales, where it just kept driving and driving and driving. It was absolutely fantastic. And Scottish, our stage times were phenomenal. Apart from stage one, we had a front wheel fall off.
Okay.
It wasn't a great start to the event now, halfway through the first stage.
Yes.
A learning curve for anybody new is we had got the wheels painted, put the wheels straight onto the car, tighten them up, and it was as we did the first stage. It turns out that I found this out afterwards. Obviously, the paint that was in around the active wheel nuts melted and left the wheel nut ever so slightly loose. And with the driving, the wheel nuts eventually loosened to 2 of them come out, and then the other two sheared, so the wheel fell off.
Isn't that amazing? Just something that you never think of. The paint just.
Anyway, paint the wheels. You need to clear out the wheel. The wheel's out area before you take it out, because it'll melt. And then the times we did from then on were absolutely manic. I remember Sydney watching us, and one person he just thought this was crazy. We shouldn't have been at it. And I mean, the only reason we parted company at the end of that year was because in 2002 I was lucky enough to be invited to go on with Rory Galligan in that Works Peugeot, which was, for me, was a step up. It was a Works car and all that sort of stuff. And that time, Kris didn't seem to have a pile of budget, even though he had the speed. Like so many people, he didn't seem to be getting the budget together. So I kind of jumped ship and went to that Peugeot Works team, and I have no regrets about that at all. It was a fantastic experience to go and do British Rally Championship with a proper Works team. Rory Galligan, another really nice guy, very, very fast guy. We had a reasonable year with a couple of good results and a few mechanical woes.
The car seemed to give a bit of ball or two, didn't it?
The car was okay, but wasn't perfect, that's the way to put it. So that was, another big sad miss to motorsport. Rory Galligan passed away so young. So.
Yeah.
And then that led to the next year again. That kind of the stepping stone of that was I stayed in that Peugeot Works car, and then there was a new driver came called Jennings. Gary had won the Peugeot Championship in 2001, so sorry, 2002. So he got the Works drive in 2003. Works drive in 2003. So that a season with Gary, both in the Irish Tarmac Championship and the British Championship with that Works team. Gary bought a 106. Maxi kit car, and we did some rallies in Ireland. We finished second or third in the Carrick-Carrick-on-Sheer Forest Rally, and
something like sixth or seventh in Donegal too, didn't you? Or something as well, I remember.
We're going good. Donegal were in the top 10 for a right while, but there was a few suspension arms started to move about, and it actually pulled a hole in the chassis, and fantastic bit of work over on the Saturday night. Took bits out before you went to Park Fermi, took them to Ballymallard to Fisher's Yard to weld bits back in, brought them back down, refitted them immediately after Park Fermi Sunday morning. But there was that much done. There was the holes are so dragged out that it only lasted halfway through Lane at a competitive speed. And we drove to the end of the stage at normal speed, and then we went to the wee pub up up round the corner and spent the rest of the day.
Parked up for the day then.
We're going nowhere else.
Yeah. So, and like, again, you were up against the likes of Kris Meeke, Gwyndath Evans, Ryan Champion. Like, Gary Jennings at that time was capable of putting up really good stage times against all them guys too.
Everywhere we went, well, yeah, you can be assured. Everywhere we went, we were extremely competitive. Yeah, well, definitely. There was no lack in that. The speed was always good. You'd say Gwyndath had been about for a while. Kris was in that Puma. He went fast in that. We were in a Peugeot. Justin Dale had been there in the Peugeot as well, going fast. Ryan Champion was in the Puma. Gary Wilkes was in that championship as well. There was nobody was slow in it. There was plenty of people to pace yourself against.
And then, again, 2004, another local driver, but the travels, you broadened your horizons. You started
Niall,
McShea, then yourself started off the Production World Rally Championship that year.
Niall got a deal to go and do the Production World Championship. Again, with Niall, lots of things could happen that he pulls a whole lot of deals together. This was a deal with a Belgian team, basically. Sims and Bob Hermans and Wynn from Belgium, or a guy called Jos Boone pulled the whole deal together for a Group N Subaru with a bit of Subaru Japan support, stuff like that. So we headed off to do that championship. We went to Mexico first. And from memory, we finished second in Group N in Mexico. You can correct me on that one, Kevin, if you look up the results. Which was good for us for first time out. A brand new event for everybody. It was brand new to the World Rally Championship at the time. Tough, demanding event, very short road sections and stuff like that. So it was good to get through there at a reasonable speed. And the altitude became a big problem for the car and for the crew and everything else. First, on the recce, we got an oil puncture, and we thought nothing would jump out and change it. But I tell you, two boys try and change a puncture in that altitude of 3,500 meters above sea level. It's hard work. You end up breathless quite quickly,
And your fitness levels, going back to Mark, probably had you were a fit man though too. So
reasonably fit. I wouldn't say I'm extremely fit, but I wouldn't be the worst. Is that the way to put it? So it was, and then the car felt slow because of the lack of air. Then we went to New Zealand that year, and it's one of the most fantastic rallies ever to go to. It's just it's like driving a big wide tarred road, except it's on gravel. It's hard packed.
And then the cambers in their roads too. You can throw the car in.
Get into the edge, get out of the edge, and that sort of stuff. We had a very unfortunate ending. We were going quite good until stage called Vanga Coast on the Sunday down in Raglan direction, and it's a long stage. It's a 30-minute stage. Like I don't know what distance it is in kilometers of that, but it takes you 30 minutes to do it. And we were about 2 or 3 Ks from the end, and we're having some brake fade issue. The brakes were getting a bit hot, and the Group N car went that far. And a combination of brake fade and optimistic pace notes, and me and Niall, we ended up sliding wide on a square corner, fell off the road. And as we were dropping off the edge of the road, we found a guy called Danny Sola already was in there. He was a Spanish driver in the Group N Mitzi. He was already in there, so we landed on top of him. And things went from bad to worse then, because Sola wasn't bad enough for him. Then we landed on top of him. His car wasn't too bad. He just had slipped off the road, like he was kind of stuck. When we landed on top of him, we needed 2 doors and a quarter panel and a roof and whatever else. So didn't we're bad enough. I mean, we went all the way there and spent all that money. We're out of the rally on the last day. Actually, that corner became quite famous. It's the infamous corner where Nicky Grist and then Colin McRae fell out in the Focus 2 years later, I assume it was. They come down over the grid and turned right and fell off the road, and there was a bit of a
set two.
Is that the way to put it? And that was they then split.
They went their separate ways.
We came back together again, but that's exactly the same corner.
Yes.
But if anybody's nothing to do and they've plenty of money and they want to get a chance to go to New Zealand, that's the place to go.
And do you see like a stage there, like you're saying it takes 30 minutes to do the stage. What's that like for a co-driver? That must be a buzz for you too, to come off that, or to be in the middle of that as well.
Oh, it's mighty. It's absolutely fantastic. You know, starting the stage, you're gonna have to do this, but you just keep focused and you keep reading notes, you keep focused, because you can't quit. Like, you can't give up and say, "Hold on a minute here, you want a week." No, you just keep at it, and you know, okay, you come in a stage, you might be a bit sweaty, according to the weather, but you know, the satisfaction you get after coming off that is absolutely phenomenal. Like, you know, I know another one of the stages in that rally we did up on the Van Garry area, which on the first pass they did 2 stages of say 12, 15k each, but on the second pass they joined them, so you had one big 35k stage. And we were second fastest by 0.1 of a second from Danny Sola, actually, the boy that landed on top of it. And to have that such a close race, you know, on that length of a stage, you know. But you asked about how you do it. You just get in and you keep doing it and you keep focused. You don't dream about anything else. All you're looking at is the road ahead, the notes in front of you, and you know, and okay, your brain is maybe thinking about the rattles and the noises, and is the car sliding more than it used to, and whatever else, and you have to keep the driver focused. Not that I never had a problem with 99% of my guys, never was an issue. You know, the Niall, McShea and Alister, Fishers and all that sort of stuff. There's never a dull moment. They never relax during the stage. It's always go from the first corner to the last.
Yes. You can watch the bits in between, but it's the bit from the closest taking its full focus in, isn't it?
There's absolutely. There's never a hiccup. It's just keep going. So the rest of the story with the McShea outing was well, they hadn't got a deal to go and do Ypres in, it would have been June of 2004, I suppose, but we had a bit of a unfortunate off down in there where we were in 5th gear on a narrow concrete road and the car got a bit sideways, and we collected 2 concrete electric poles with my side of the car, which unfortunately landed me in the hospital in Ypres for a few days with a few broken ribs and a sore shoulder. I wrote off Evo and whatever else. So I think it's the only time I've ever ended up with an injury from rallying, you know. So that put a pain to me, because with the broken ribs and the shoulder and that sort of stuff, I wasn't able to do anything else for the rest of the year. So that's whenever Michael Orr then stepped in to do the next 3 rounds of that Production World Championship. With Niall, they went to Corsica, somewhere around Australia. I can't remember. Corsica, Germany, and
I think yes, because Germany they went off for the run home or something.
Went off, went off in there.
So. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that was my saga of 04 now, but from a few highs to being in the hospital, not a great way to do it. But
just the joys of
survive and have to learn anything.
So 2005 then. A bit closer to home then with Kevin Lynch, like another one of those drivers. Kevin come out and over all of a sudden was winning rallies, you know, like that must have been.
Well, the time I met Kevin Lynch, he already had his WRC car. He already had an S9 by then, like, and I'm not sure what the connection was. Stan Harper, the usual story with any of these motorsport sagas, there was a full phone call somewhere. Would you go to do a rally with this guy? Why not? I'm not doing anything else. I'll go and do it. So we done very well. We went to Ravens Rock. It was the first time we'd even properly met, for want of a better term, you know. Went and won that rally, and that set the scene for a while there. But I was again a sporadic stand-in for Kevin. Is that the way to put it? Because Francis Reagan had been a very regular co-driver with him, but he started going with Boland in that period of 05, 06 and things like that. And the guy called Martin McNichol, who was Kevin's brother-in-law, was doing Northern Ireland Championship events and a few other things and that sort of stuff. So I fitted in there quite well. We had some very good rallies. We had quite a few wins, actually. We whether we're winning or we were getting nothing. Is that the way to put it?
Trophies are
no, not necessarily. I wouldn't say it was not saying it was risky in any way, but it was just that's the way it happened to work out. We were always competitive. We were always at the front, and if we finished, we seemed to win. That's the way the record would show it in hindsight. You know, the 2 times we didn't win, there was a few mechanical issues. We went off in the circuit, slid up a bank and damaged the radiator and didn't get going again. Donegal went off on Brina. Not a great saga, but landed off the road. If anybody knows Braina, there's halfway down, there's a fast left right kink with a wee bump in the middle of it. And,
oh yes, it's actually a nasty wee one, isn't it? Yeah.
Nasty wee bump, and we try to take it absolutely flat out and skid off the road and down through a field. And
Right.
I mean, we were that far off the road. Whenever we stopped, we couldn't actually see the road. And I was up at the road trying to tell everybody it was all right. I couldn't actually talk to him who was down beside the car, no matter how much I shouted. Like, that's how
Right.
far off we went. So
Yeah.
we didn't hit anything hard. You know,
No.
we just landed out over the hedge and we just kept sliding through this grass and rushes and whatever else and kept going for ages. So. But some very good wins. I mean, we won lots of different rallies from Cavan, Kerry, Lurgan Park. We won there. Where else did they win, Kevin? You probably have all these.
I have it there somewhere. Yeah, but like for a guy that had only been rallying probably 2 years at that stage,
no, it's very good.
Phenomenal to really step up to that. You know, so.
Stepped up to Chile and took it on and did a bit of learning, got a bit of tuition from a few good people from the Higginses and a few things like that. You know, about how he should be driving. He quickly learned. He had a group N for a couple of rallies. Didn't like the soft gearbox in it, rather was someone that wasn't going to break on him. So the Group A car suited him perfectly, you know. And he just got in and pedaled it as hard as he could go, and he never was afraid of it. Like
and like, you know, and remember at the time you kind of get, you know, there was always this kind of, oh sure, he's getting talked about Higgins or whatever, but like any other sport, you know, be golfing or whatever. No. Like, there's no harm in having a coach, you know. That's like, I never understand that at all. You know,
and, I mean, he only utilised the coach in the early days. It wasn't that it happened, you know, day after day, whenever. No, they taught him the basics. Then he went and did
put it into practice.
The rest, like, he put it into practice, you know. So it's grand. Very nice fella, very good businessman. Very unfortunate circumstance the way his business folded in that collapse of.
The way that business, you know, like he went from having, you know, just a very small business to such a huge business again in such a short space of time too.
Yeah,
you know?
right. So. But he had a very good eye for that business. You know, there was an opportunity there for that utilities work, and he bid for it, and he was making it work. And I mean that contracting side of his business was extremely successful. It's just unfortunately the other property market
pieces
dragged it down with it. So good lad, good fun. Haven't seen him for a while, but he's still about. So.
Yeah. And then you went back on the world stage then in 2006 with Alister McRae.
I am another fantastic driver and such a nice person as well. I must say, you know, there's lots of people that I've rallied with over the years, but his personality was absolutely fantastic, and the fact that he could drive fast was just made it for me. An opportunity became. He was looking somebody to, his professional career kind of stopped, is that the way to put it, and. David Senior moved on to go with Breitenbach and a few things like that, and he had an opportunity to go and do some rallies in China. So one of those roundabout phone calls, would you go? I'll go, sure. See what it's like. Not having the two of us had a number of full phone calls. What are we going to do about eating? What are we going to do with this? What about that? When we got there, it was quite good. Mark Higgins had been there the year before us, so we were able to bounce it off him and see what it was like, and it was grand. We went to do some rallies in China. We went to South Africa as well.
I'm just even thinking about China. Like, I know Mark Higgins had been there the year previous, but like up to that, like somebody coming from Europe, say, to go over to China, like that was a huge step to go over to there. Like, it's a completely different setup. The cars never, wasn't it? You just couldn't get parts.
It's different in one way, but I mean, whenever we soon found out that the rallies were under the general FIA specification and regulations, there's nothing new in the It's like the rules of football. You know, the rules of football are the same whether you're in China or Ireland or wherever else. So in general, the rally ran very much the FIA regs. They were trying to aspire to that. That level. Okay, the regulations are written in Chinese and things like that, but the timing system was the same as we have here. The road book you could follow, etc. So it wasn't that vastly different. And the first year we went, they were using the equivalent of a Mitsubishi Evo 9 anyway. So it was that was easy to work with and adjust and whatever else. We were in initially in what's called, I don't know what they were called out there, but we used to, us boys from Europe used to call them the green team and the yellow team, and there was two Subaru teams, a yellow team and another blue team, right? So you had four teams really, and each team was allowed to bring in one international driver to drive for their team. So there used to be four crews from Europe, and each of these four teams, and there was good banter and good speed, and it was very competitive whenever you're there. I can assure you, nobody wanted to be second. And the experience was great. You're going somewhere completely different and new, and we did eventually learn to eat, and they learned to get us a diet that would suit us. So that worked out okay. And the recce was good. You used the rally car for the recce, but you weren't allowed to speed so much. But you used the rally car for the recce, if you know what I mean. So, and the speed was controlled a bit. But the locals used to have as many accidents recceing as they did rallying over there in the rally car. So there's lots of that sort of story. So, we were very lucky. We won the first rally. Put us in a very good setting, but we had the completely the opposite scenario in the second one. Then when we were running first car on the road in the second rally, and stage one we rolled it into a bloody paddy field, and the paddy field I didn't know until I was lying on my roof. Was it's about 6 inches of muddy oil water with grass growing up out of it, like run upside down with this puddle of water in the roof. And when we got out, then we were landing on the roof. We were grand, like just climbed out of the doors, and we were looking for somebody to give us a hand to push it back over on this wheel. But I ran away up the road, and I saw a group of, there would have been half a dozen men standing. So I started to shout, and come and give me a push, and all 6 of them took off running to hide from behind the tree. Sure, I hadn't seen a rally before, and I've seen this European guy, 5'10" guy from Europe, and him, his face was white as could be, coming running at them, shouting, with a helmet on.
A helmet and all on.
A helmet and all thing on me, coming running at them. But we eventually got the marshals were like a young army, like a cadet army thing. So we eventually found probably was 2 or 3 of them, and there were no big hurry. The way you were as a competitor, the first thing you want to do is get it back on his wheels, get it going, and they were coming walking around and everything else. So we eventually got them to turn it over onto his wheels, and away we went. And windscreen out of it, and it's absolutely full of this muck. When you turn it, the roof had become kind of like a sort of scoop, and when you turn it back up, that all filled into the seats and into the floor. Then, so we had like, you could only describe it as a kind of slurry in the car to be back to service. But we finished the rally, and the team were very appreciative that we made the effort to get back and things like that. But they didn't like you crashing much or stuff.
No. And then you're saying that you went on to South Africa then with Alister as well?
That was a very multinational event where South Africa were having their WRC candidate event, as Ireland was having almost at the same sort of time. Run an event where the FIA would come and observe it and prove it was of the standard of the World Championship would accept, and so on. So they were looking for an international driver to come and compete in the event. A guy called John Lloyd, who had been one of Niall McShea's sponsors, was also sponsoring Alister McRae through his helicopter company, and he was very good friends with the clerk of the course down there, had rallied in Africa before, so there was a link made there. So the driver's from Scotland, I was from here. The car came from Niall Allport, who's a New Zealander. Okay, we had a tyre deal for Silverstone, so there's a guy from Malaysia who came to look after the tyres. And we all landed in South Africa from different angles in this Evo 9. And we were against the local Super 2000 Toyotas. They were very much an emerging car down there. They were the first to build them, and they had the 2-litre Raven engine with a four-wheel drive system on a Toyota Yaris with a much smaller shell. So they're very nimble and fast. And some of the local guys, Jan Habig and Hagen, what's his second name? Some of those guys are fast. Like, they would have been driving these roads for quite a while and knew what they were at, and the cars are good. But we eventually won out there, and it was a super feeling. And one of the other negative things in my life was I took food poisoning the night between the recce and the actual rally starting, and so I didn't sleep too well. I got up the first morning feeling absolutely horrendous, couldn't eat, was constantly throwing up and being sick, and I can distinctly remember the start of stage 3 or 4, and it was about 30 degrees C outside. I went out to do tires, and I had to shout to Ali, come out here and do this. When I turned to be sick over the hedge, and he had to finish the tires, and then the next thing you do, you've got a minute and a half to go. You have to put the helmet on and go. Like, the stages were fine. I could survive the stage. See, when you come out of the stage and you get the headache, and eventually I had to find a doctor, and he gave me some injection to stop this
anti-sickness.
Anti-sickness. I went out the second day, and it was a big race. Like, this wasn't handy. This wasn't floating about in your own. We were as hard as we could go all the time. Absolutely. Everything was mental fast. Like, and survived and won by 30 odd seconds, something like that.
Okay.
We were, you know,
Yeah.
it was down to 5 or 6 for a good while. Like, you know, it
Mhm.
was good, but the satisfaction of winning in a foreign country with all these different people coming from different places was fantastic. You know,
Bring all this together yet to do this.
bringing all that together. But South Africa is not a place that you would go to quickly for your holidays. There's a lot of violence and danger and that sort of stuff in it as well.
Yes.
So, but
You were
very
probably
good to go
seeing
around.
the good side of it, but there was a
Yeah,
dark
for
side
sure.
to it. Then
Yeah,
not very far away. Yeah, so.
absolutely. There's lots of those townships where there's literally thousands of people living in little huts on the side of the mountain and stuff. You know, it's a different world. It makes you feel very privileged to be doing what you're doing. So that's
Very
good.
humble, and
I think one of my other things I need to talk about is with the McRae stages in 2006.
Oh yes.
Is that the correct year? Well, Alister and I won
2006,
that rally.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a highlight as well. We went to the McRae
Yeah.
stages in his Mark II, and back to the basics. I went to his house. Me and him into the truck and drove it up the start of the event on the Saturday morning, offloaded it ourselves. There was no big team or nothing else about.
That's right.
A couple of guys came to service for us and service for Colin. There was two guys looking after both of us. Colin was one in a Mark I BDA, and we were two in Alister's black car with that Nissan engine in it. Jimmy was 3, I think.
That's right. The whole 3 of them was out, weren't they?
Trevor Moore from Northern Ireland was over his BDA and a few guys. And the way the rally ran was the two-wheel drive cars all ran first in a batch, and then there was a gap of about 20 minutes or half an hour before the four-wheel drive brigade were allowed to into the stage. So we headed off to do our own particular race. At the end of stage 1, Colin was missing. His car had an engine failure or a problem or whatever else. So that was him out. And we had a reasonable lead over Trevor Moore then, and kept going. And by the time we got the arrival control of stage 3, we were then trying to work out what was happening. So
where the stage time coming off from stage 1,
whatever was happening behind us. So somebody at the arrival control told me that we were leading this rally. I said, no, you must be wrong. Them boys and them other.
We're the 2-wheel drive kind of thing.
I said, this boy there's good focus and there's a couple of good Subarus and all this sort of stuff. No, you're leading the rally. I went back to tell all this story. God, you tell me. So thought nothing about it. And when we got to start of stage 4, and then we went back and found out that we were actually leading this whole rally. But what had happened, the background of this story was quite foggy, right? But I suppose me and Al hadn't got the sense to actually slow down. Where it was foggy, we just kept going. I kept reading, he kept listening, and none of us knew the stages. We just trusted the notes and we drove. And it turned out the guys in those four-wheel drive cars maybe weren't just as brave or as stupid. I know it's whatever angle you want to take on it. Like,
and they were just organizer notes as well. It wasn't even.
They were, we were on those Scott map notes. So there was no such thing as a recce or whatever else. But we got away in those couple of foggy stages and got a right good times and ended up winning the rally and beating the guys in their cars at the back. So, and we certainly had a few beers after that. Is that the way to put it? We ended up back and we were in Colin's house then that night later on, and I tell you, it was late before we could finish up. But early, whatever way you want to put it. Now, it's true. So, I think it was just the pure.
As legendary as the two boys, weren't they?
That's right. Yeah, but it's just the pure satisfaction, of getting that result. So both of us felt quite chuffed about it.
I could think a lot of people would say that, Alister was an exceptionally good and talented driver in his own right, but he was kind of probably under Colin's radar a wee bit. He probably didn't get the credit he probably deserved.
I would say. I mean, he got the drives he got in the World Rally Championship were on his own merit, his own speed, and the fact that he was Colin's brother got a bit of PR gen out of it, but it did probably put him under a certain irk of pressure in some way, carrying the name. But he's very well capable of carrying that speed on his own. So he certainly wouldn't be a slouch, but a very nice guy. Went away to Australia in 2007 or 8 and living life out there and loving it. So
and see his son now starting to rally now too, Max.
Yeah, a young fella called Max. Grand cub, come up through karts, did a little bit of racing for a year now. He started rallying, and from what I can gather, is capable as well, and will get quite a number of breaks. I'm sure Alister will have him fairly well coached and that sort of stuff. But good. Another well settled young fella, potential to go somewhere, I'd say. So.
Brilliant, great to see, isn't it?
Good to see, yeah.
That was Gordon Noble and myself, Kevin Lynch, talking rally. I think you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, can you please like and rate the podcast? And if you're listening on Apple Podcast, a review would be fantastic. Part 2 will be out soon. So until then, take care and speak soon. Bye-bye.